All right, you are now live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Grants Committee meeting of September 11th, 2023, virtual meeting, starting at 10:05. I'd like to call to order and do our land acknowledgement. Kathy Daigle-Gammon, District 1, Waverly Fall River, Muscatawbit Valley, and chair of this committee. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and acknowledges that we are all treaty people. So we'll do the roll call and check for audio and for the video. So our Vice Chair, Joseph Allen.
Good morning.
Joseph, is your camera working?
Oh, yeah, let me get that connected. Just give you one moment here.
Okay, we're just going to make sure that everything is in order. We have threats from Councillor Blackburn, Councillor Becky Kent.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, Becky. Alex Handyside.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Alex. Stefan Ludin.
Morning.
Morning. Leona Milne. I don't think I saw Leona join yet.
Leona has not joined yet, no.
Okay. And Io has sent his regrets. Io out of Jabi. Pamela Crowell.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pamela. And we have regrets as well from Councillor Lindell Smith. Staff with us today is PJ Temple. Morning, PJ.
Morning. I had to find the button there.
Great. Is Peter Grecian with us as well?
Peter is currently trying to join. I'm just corresponding with him right now.
Okay, great. And Scott Ingram, Service Delivery Coordinator with Parks and Rec.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Scott. And Erica Fleck. I don't think Erica's joined us just yet, has she?
He has not, no.
Okay. And making sure we're doing everything in the proper way is our legislative assistant, Elizabeth McDonald.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we have a guest with us as well today, Lockie Rutz. Lockie, we just make sure that we can see and hear you if that's okay.
Okay, everything going well? Can you hear me well?
Oh, we can hear you. Your camera's not on though. Maybe that's your choice. Which is the next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of July 10th, 2023 and July 24th, 2023. Are there any errors or omissions, Elizabeth?
There are none.
So hearing none, could we have a motion, please, to approve the minutes? Councillor Kent, as seconder.
Second.
Ludin. Stefan Ludin, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Alex. All those opposed? Motion is carried. Next is approval of the order of business and the approval of additions or deletions. Elizabeth, do we have any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Great. Then would someone like to provide us a motion to approve the order of business? Councillor Kent, thank you. A seconder, please.
Second.
Stefan, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. A call for a declaration of conflict of interests. Any conflict of interests? No. Hearing none, we'll move on. Consideration of deferred business is none. Oh, my apologies. Lockie, I see your hand is up. Did you have a question?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I was trying to play with the camera and it's not coming on, so.
Okay, great. Correspondence, is there any correspondence been received by the clerk's office, Elizabeth?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. And petitions, do we have any petitions?
No petitions.
Great, moving right along then to presentations. Lakeshore Curling Club, Lockie Rutt, the floor is yours, Lockie.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much.
So Lai, I have your PowerPoint here. You wanted me to display it?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay, it'll
I'm
just
working on-
hold on. It'll just be 1 minute there. And I can also promote you to panelists as well. So you'll have more powers there. 1 second.
Elizabeth, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. I'm just trying to, for some reason, I don't see the option to share my screen.
I
which
see
is-
you and
Oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. So I have your PowerPoint here. And you can just let me know when you want me to move or when you want me to go to the next slide. And
Okay,
I
I'll
will
just-
can start as soon as you start. It can start timing the 10 minutes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'll just simply say next slide and that way
Yeah,
you can promote
that
it when
works.
time comes. Okay, good. Okay, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for allowing me to present on behalf of Lakeshore Curling Club, of which I'm a board member. The reason for our presentation today is to request a reconsider of our grant application that was denied this year. So that's the principal reason. And I noticed that it's later on your agenda under 9.1.3, the reconsideration. So I'll go ahead with my presentation. Next slide. Okay, now Lakeshore Curling Club, I'll give you a little background about Lakeshore Curling Club. We've operated as a tenant of the Sackville Sports Stadium for the last 25 years. And we're basically the anchor tenant of the curling club, of the sports stadium. Our membership of our curling club is approximately 300 to 350 adult members. And we have membership from the Sackvilles, Bedford, Fall River, Beaver Bank, Hammonds Plains, and even elsewhere in HRM because we have some available ice surface. Okay, we host curling for all ages, and that includes quite a sizable seniors curling program, wheelchair curling, Special Olympics curling, and quite a robust and active junior curling program. And that program starts at 5 years of age. Our club is also fully wheelchair accessible. And we also provide curling programming in partnership with HRM Recreation. Next slide. So the background, I want to give you a little background on our grant request. We just recently signed a 10-year lease with HRM to remain at Sackville Sports Stadium. Up till that time, we've had basically 25 years of one-year leases. And we weren't very secure in that with our membership because members were always concerned that next year there might not be curling. So the 10-year lease has assisted us greatly in trying to secure our membership a little bit more. Unfortunately, during this process of getting a longer lease, the one-year leases always had the curling rocks and ice making equipment and everything supplied by HRM. But in the 10-year lease, HRM did not want to supply that anymore for the curling club and wanted us to take that over. Part of that being the fact that the curling rocks that were given to us originally were used curling rocks, and curling rocks last basically about 18 years with proper maintenance. And of course, we're at 25 years with used rocks, and the rocks really had to be replaced. And HRM didn't want to be responsible for that. So that was the reason for our grant request. We put in a grant request towards the cost of rock replacement. So we've been looking for other grants. Our membership is doing fundraising as well. At this point, we have about 26 to 28% of the money needed for the rocks. To do that, we've been able to acquire that so far. That includes a grant from Sport Nova Scotia to assist us in the amount of $5,000. I guess I should tell you that the rocks cost about in excess of about $90,000 to replace the rocks. So that's where we're at right now. Next slide, please. Okay, so at this point, the rocks are going to cost us, like I said, about $90,000. That's a little bit of a moving target. It's close, basically because we have exchange fees, the currency exchange fees, and there will be some import fees as well for those rocks. The club asked for $25,000 from HRM in a grant request to go towards that. So that's basically about a quarter of the money. And we've basically raised a quarter of the money already. And we have some other activities going on as well. The grant request wasn't funded this year. And so that has left us, you know, in a position where we're still at 25% of our grant request or the cost of the rocks. Okay, next slide. Okay, we went through the details of the refusal of the grant request and saw that, you know, there was no comments there that it was an unworthy project or one that would not benefit the community or anything like that. And we saw that the request was refused for 3 specific reasons. Okay, the rationale for one of the ones was that we were importing the equipment and there would be additional costs for shipping and currency exchange, and why we were doing that wasn't demonstrated. And the second reason was that the request did not meet the criteria for a capital grant. The cost is a function of volume, and none of the items cost more than $5,000 each. And through the review of the grant request, we saw that the equipment purchases, they believe, could be phased in as funds permitted. Okay, so that was the reason for the refusal of the request, and I want to address that. Next slide. First of all, in the first refusal, it was, why are we basically buying curling rocks somewhere and have to have them imported in currency? Well, the reason for that is that there's not a lot of places to buy curling rocks, and in fact, there's only one now. There was a company in Canada that manufactured curling stones. They shut down the quarry at the beginning of COVID and have never reopened. And so Canada Curling Stone is basically out of business, and they're selling basically accessories now as opposed to curling stones. So we had to go to the other supplier, which is the Kay's Curling Stone in Scotland, and order the rocks from there. So that's the reason why they're being imported and why there's currency exchange, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'd like to address the second and third reason for the refusal of our grant request, and address that with you and give an explanation. And I think some of this means it comes from maybe the review, the people that were reviewing didn't know a lot about curling rocks and curling stones and how that works. So, okay, first of all, curling rocks are not bought in the ones, right? There's 16 curling rocks on each sheet of ice. We have 6 sheets of ice at Lakeshore Curling Club. Curling stones it's very scientific sport, and in fact, curling stones. When you buy curling stones, you have to buy a lot of curling stones that are the exact match. You cannot buy onesies, one here, one there. They come in a uniform set. And in our case, it's a uniform set of 96 curling rocks. Although there are individual curling rocks, they are basically one item as they are a lot and purchased that way. And curling stones, it's kind of scientific. The stones are numbered and weighed and tracked forever, and so that everything has to be uniform, because someone throwing a curling rock can't throw one that's 40 pounds and throw one that's 40.2 pounds the next time. The sport doesn't work that way, and the rocks don't perform. Currently, our rocks had aged out quite a few years ago. HRM didn't want to replace them, and so we're at the position now that we really have to replace them. The idea of the sport is called curling, and curling stones curl. And the last couple of years, sometimes the rocks go down the other end of the sheet of ice and they don't curl at all, or sometimes they'll curl the wrong way. That's because the bottoms of the rocks have worn and gotten so flat, they're catching and not turning. So that's where we are right now. So we wanted to address those points with the committee and ask that you reconsider. Next slide. Okay. And so we're asking you to reconsider the refusal of our grant request based on us addressing the concerns that were mentioned during the review process. We really want to keep curling going in Lower Sackville. It's a big community initiative there. It's great socialization. It's team building. It's all the things that the junior curlers need to help them in life, and senior curling's the socialization. And for those people who like the competition side of it, it's a very important part of the community. And there's no other curling clubs in the area. Basically, at this point, it's downtown Dartmouth or on the peninsula of Halifax to be curling. And that makes it difficult for some individuals, especially younger persons, to get them. So, next slide.
30 seconds.
Okay, I just want to thank the committee for its work and the opportunity to present. And I will take any questions if time permits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lockie. We appreciate your presentation. We have a speakers list. I see some hands up. So how about I'll go through the speakers list and we'll get everybody in. So first on the list is Alec Handyside. You have a question for Lockie?
Yes, thanks very much, Lockie. And I was a quick search on Google says that there's a quarry in North Wales, the Trefor Quarry, that also provides curling stones, particularly to the US and Canada. Have you approached that quarry?
No, we had not approached that quarry. We had approached the Canada Curling Stone and Caves of Scotland. And the reason we chose Caves of Scotland was the Blue Nose Curling Club in New Glasgow had just purchased curling stones from them, and they came highly recommended. So that's why we went there.
Okay, because the Canada Curling Stone Company used to get their stones from the Trefor Quarry in Wales. So they no longer do. So, but you can get them directly. Apparently, that's what Google says.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex. Next on our speakers list is Stefan Ludin. Stefan, do you have any questions?
No questions right now, no.
Thank you. Next on our list is Pamela Prohl.
there. Sorry about that. No questions. It was a pretty thorough presentation, I thought.
Great.
Thank you.
Next on our list, Joseph Allen, our Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple questions. What are the cost breakdowns per item per stone? I know we
Well,
have, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, first of all, it's 96 stones and the cost is approximately $90,000 before import fees. So that works out to be about $1,000 a stone.
Okay, and is there any opportunity to purchase lower amounts of volume of stones over a longer period of time for replacement?
No, curling stones have to be completely matched and all bought of the same lot and all at the same time.
Mhm.
So we're either in for, we can't go in for a penny, we have to go in for the whole pound, right?
Mhm. That's all the questions I had, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lockie. A couple of thank yous for you for the presentation. I think this has been very helpful, certainly to me as a committee member. And I want to thank you as well for the championing and the advocacy that you have for curling. Nova Scotia is known around the world as bringing many great curlers to the table at high levels. So these kinds of grassroots places are so important. So thank you for your dedication to that and your entire team. Thirdly, as well, thank you for the stewardship of that kind of longevity for the equipment that was originally in place through the municipality. Like, that's extraordinary, 18 to 25 years, 18 years lifespan is probably still a big reach to get to there. For curling stones and etc. And to get to 25 is extraordinary. So my question around the whole application is, can you help me understand why we wouldn't have had this kind of information in the original application? Had it been there, maybe this, I can't be sure, but maybe this could have gone further. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, is there a piece of the application that you felt you didn't have the chance to really bring this to the table? Or like, why is it we're only just getting this now?
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor. I appreciate your comments and I'll address your question. The first thing is that I was not the person that completed the original application. That would have been done by the chairman of our board, who's away and is not here today to meet with you. So I'm sort of a substitute person in that regard. And so I'm really at a loss, and I would not want to guess at why that was not in the application. I see that there was a section of the criteria that of the process that they thought that if something costs less than $500, that it might not qualify for it and for the grant request. And as I always had already addressed to the previous question, even one stone is $1,000. So I hope that answers as best as I can. I'm sorry that I'm not the original author of the application.
Okay, thank you. I think that's, for me, that would be an important question to answer, not necessarily for our deliberation today, but for our grant application process. We want to make sure that, I know that the municipality, and I know that the staff, we're in the business of making sure that communities have what they need. Good grant application processes are really important to that. And I know within the grants committee that they've done a really good job, but if there's a piece missing around an opportunity, sometimes people will read a grant application, they'll see a very small piece area to fill something in and try to get the gist of it within that space. And if we had to tweak a grant application to make sure that opportunities are there, I would rather know that. So even if a quick email to the chair, and so, excuse me, Madam Chair, for suggesting you get something in your inbox, but I think it's helpful to know if grant applications are really providing the space for people to put that information forward. This was a lot of information, but I think it could have been condensed in a way that would have been really helpful in the original grant application. So I just throw that out there. Thank you very much. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Kent. And thank you, Lockie, for your presentation. When we get further on into the agenda, we might be able to then ask that question of staff as well. And we'll see where that gets us to. So thank you, Lockie. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and present. And I'm sure that you're probably going to stay online and listen attentively for item 9.1.3. Thank you very much. So moving on, our next item on the agenda is information items brought forward. There are none. Next, under 9, excuse me, 9.1.1 is the Volunteer Search and Rescue Grant Program fiscal year 23-24. If I could have a member please put a motion on the floor and be seconded, we'll have a discussion. Thank you, Stefan. You would read out the motion, please.
Stefan, you're muted.
Don't give up. Don't give up, Steph. Don't give up. Rats. All right. Back to it. I move that the Grants Committee recommend that Regional Council amend the motion on the floor from the August 22nd, 2023 Regional Council meeting to 1, approve an additional $25,212.55 in operating grants for the 3 volunteer ground search and rescue teams listed on table 1 of the discussion section of the staff report dated August 23rd, 2023. 2, approve a one-time operating grant to the Sheet Harbor and Area Ground Search and Rescue equivalent to an operating grant under Administrative Order 2014 TAC 018 TAC ADM in the amount of $33,352.23. 3, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to prepare a recommendation report with respect to the feasibility of repealing Administrative Order 2014 TAC 018 TAC ATM grants to volunteer search and rescue EMO organizations and replacing the current policy with a municipal service agreement model for each of those ground search and rescue teams recognized by Halifax Regional Municipality. 4, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to prepare a recommendation report with respect to the implementation of a municipal registry for emergency service providers pursuant to Section 306 of the Halifax Regional Municipality Charter. And 5, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to include an increase in funding to volunteer emergency service providers for consideration in the fiscal 2024-2025 budget process. So moved.
Seconder, please.
I second.
Thank you, Pamela. Second. I do know that we have PJ Temple is here to speak to it. I don't know if Erica Fleck has made it in yet.
Erica is not currently on the call. No.
Okay. Before I go to the speakers list, PJ, is there anything that you might like to highlight in this motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a poor substitute for Erica, trying our best. But I do think that I think with the impending possibility of a hurricane, if we could just kind of bear with us, certainly I don't think it's any reflection on Erica's interest in the subject. So with that in mind, really a synopsis, I think the report is trying to explain how over the years, the call out, the type of call out has changed for we call them GSAR groups, ground search and rescue. Certainly demand is growing, and one might reasonably anticipate it's going to continue to grow. So expanded issues around climate change, natural disasters certainly may continue at this rate or increase. Recently, the teams have been used to make wellness checks on homeless people, particularly those in tents or living rough, and again, in relation to severe weather events. So I also understand there may be an increase in call-outs in relation to mental health, Alzheimer's, for example, or even perhaps people with mental health issues that may be a risk to themselves. So in that context, I think this has moved, and I think we need to move and catch up with those changes. Definitely, I think the Registry of Emergency Service Providers would provide the municipality extraordinary abilities that you don't typically get with cash grants, in terms of you will have more options in terms of how you could support these groups. For example, under that legislation, the municipality would have an opportunity to loan capital assets, for example, vehicles, to the groups. It does give you the option to loan monies or guarantee a loan. And now that all 4 of those groups will be property owners, there is a mechanism which you could secure that loan against their assets. So the other benefit of a municipal registry is that would make them tax exempt under the Assessment Act. Again, all 4 are property owners. So that would drive an efficiency for these groups. There's only 4 of them. Certainly staff would assist in relaying that information for them on their behalf to PBSC. And that would mean that they would not have to apply for tax relief. It's an expediency for them and ourselves. So I think overall, we're trying to send a message that, well, that was then, this is now. Here are opportunities to expand the scope and the type of assistance to these groups. And I would think there would be public support to do so. These groups are gaining in their visibility, and certainly there's a strain in terms of particularly rural groups with smaller populations. We need to pool the volunteers sometimes if an emergency is large scale or extended. So that's my understanding. I'm not the subject expert, but I can certainly talk to the grants side of things, and I would strongly encourage your acceptance. Thanks.
Thank you very much, PJ. And now we'll go to our speakers list. And first up is Councillor Becky Kent.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm trying to find in this report just where the actual motion is. I just want to make sure that I have a full understanding of what the motion is. I think just
The motion is on page 3 of the report.
page 3. Thank you.
The one that was just read out as well.
I'm not seeing it on page 3. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong report, but it's September 11th. Is it the information item?
It's, yeah, item number 9.1.1.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I'm
not the information item, it's
Oh. Okay, that's where I'm going wrong. So let's start there. It's the next one over. Okay, no, that's 913.
let me just bring up the,
When is it?
1.1.1.
Minutes, I see minutes.
let
might
me
be this one.
see, 9, so it is,
They both seem to be labeled the same.
so there's grants 911, 9.1.1.
Okay, I see the recommendation here, yes.
It's right after grants presentation 731. Is that coming up for you?
So this is for, I just want to make sure that I'm going in the right direction on this. This is for all of the grants. And are we still, you know what, I'm going to get you to pass on me and I'll come back because I don't want to get in the way of everybody else. I want to make sure I understand this and don't say it wrong because I have some questions I'm a little concerned about. So, all right, thank you.
That sounds good. So adding to PJ's excellent synopsis there, this came to us at our last meeting. We did the ground search and rescue. Oops, there's my train. One of the teams didn't submit their grant, so that's one of the reasons this came back. The other reason is that Councillor Mancini brought forward a motion at Regional Council afterwards, wanting to understand why the Halifax ground search and rescue team didn't get the entirety of what they had requested. And so at Regional Council, we brought both of those back to for a supplementary report to come back to grants staff to look at that. Erica Fleck and the team looked at the applications, the principle of averaging the 3 years of funding to find out what's the amount of funding would be available. And that's the result of this. So there is a slight increase now to all 4 teams, a more significant increase for Halifax Ground Search and Rescue based on that. In addition to that, the other numbered items in the motion are about moving this from a grants program into another option being the registry. So that's a synopsis again, I guess, of what we've done. This is something that I know that the ground search and rescue teams are been very much in favor of, because the cash grants program didn't provide as much flexibility for growth as they're experiencing in their teams. So next on our list is Alex Handyside.
I also just wanted to let everyone know Erica is now in the meeting. She just joined.
Great.
Nothing from me.
Okay,
Chair. Thanks.
thank you, Alex. Stefan, any questions from you?
No question.
Okay. Pamela?
Other than to say that the whole thing coming along with climate change, this seems more and more important as was noted, but no extra questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joseph?
Good morning. Yeah, I just want to echo my colleague Pamela there, where, you know, as climate change does become more of a on the forefront of our minds on a weekly basis, as it sounds right now, I do agree that this kind of I feel that this should not be part of the grants program, that it should be more solidified in another avenue where that should be always a constant and stable source of revenue for that program as we encounter more instabilities in our environment. So I just wanted to echo that as well, that I do agree with that.
Fantastic. And now we'll go back to Councillor Kent. Councillor Kent, with Erica here, I'm sure that as the subject matter expert, she will be able to add quite eloquently to the conversation.
Thank you. Good to see you, Erica. So I think I've got it now, and I certainly appreciate. I always appreciate. I've been championing for years for ground search and rescue. Those teams are so vital in our communities. So I'm really happy to see that there's been some shift here. What I think threw me off was the Porters Lake piece, and so am I understanding this correct, PJ, that we are still declining funding for that group, or because the information report seems to be mostly that 9 for this seems to be, and I feel like that was part of the debate that we had with Councillor Hensby, was the Porters Lake piece. Am I remembering that correct?
Through you, Madam
No,
Chair.
I'm not. Okay, good. So my brain, it's like, I'm not sure that's
Well
the
done.
challenge, I think, for counselors coming to these situations. They
That's
have so
okay.
much going on.
So
Give me,
let's
members of the committee.
we'll explain to everybody. The purpose of the Porters Lake, that was a request through council to reconsider that application. So that's Porters Lake Community Hall under the Community Grants Program. And the
Okay.
reason that was circulated today was actually to show the committee members how the loop closes, what that process is under those circumstances, okay? And the
Oh.
rationale provided there.
Okay, so
So-
it's very separate from this.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was reading
Alrighty.
it thinking, I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. So how does that connect to this? And okay, it's listed under the same number, 911. I think maybe the 2030 911 911. It's under that's grants information item, but maybe it's just this is the date. I know that's the date, but sometimes. Oh, I see. There's the 911 PDF. Oh my gosh. I need to go back to bed, I think. Oh God. Sorry about that. Thank you for the clarification. I'll just move on.
No
I'm
worries.
done. I'm done.
Thank you. Having gone through our speakers list, anyone have any other further questions before we call for the question? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Thank you, Alex. Motion is carried. Thank you all. That was great conversation. Our next item on the list, and Eric, like you came in and you were all good.
Yeah, my apologies, Madam Chair. I'm in a different time zone, literally, and I'm just a bit messed up this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being
Welcome
here.
aboard.
Okay.
I just
Thank
have a quick question. Did we have a seconder for the motion? I had Stefan
We
as the
did.
mover.
It was Pamela.
Pamela, okay, perfect. I just missed that. Thank you.
And thank you for the report, Erica. It looks like we're moving forward in a positive way. Thank you so very much. Okay. Next item on our agenda is 9.1.2, which is the Rams Grove building. So we would have a member put the motion on the floor, please. For the less than market value lease at Graham's Grove building. I put the motion on the floor and then we will discuss.
I'll put that on the floor, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So it's recommended the Grants Committee, number one, recommend the Halifax Regional Council approve entering into a lease less than market value lease agreement with the Kiwanis Club of Dartmouth Charitable Foundation for a portion of the premises located at 45 Graham's Grove, with key terms set out in table 1 of this report, and that council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute the less than market value lease agreement. And 2, recommend the Halifax Regional Council approve entering into a less than market value lease agreement with the Dartmouth Dragon Boat Association for a portion of the premises located at 45 Graham's Grove, with key terms set out in table 2 of this report, and that council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute the less than market value lease agreement. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please?
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Joseph. And now we can go to our speakers list. Stefan, you're first up.
No question.
No questions?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, I said no question. Sorry.
great. And Pamela
No questions.
and Joseph,
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Kent,
Yeah, just one quick question for PJ. PJ, is this kind of model something that's been done before? Or is this new? The 2 leases for the same premises like this?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't think there's anything unique to this. It could be multiple tenants in one building or 2 on the same piece of land. From a tax perspective, it does create challenges because you will have one tax bill that will be apportioned between the tenancy. And again, which schedule they go on may come down to a function of the ratio of use.
And for this building, is there an overarching management group that will work through that? Or is that going to be all of the burden of the municipality to work through that?
Scott, maybe you could answer that question.
Yeah, through you, Chair to the Councillor. The building itself is 2 buildings actually, so it's one property. We have 2 buildings, one with a Kiwanis operating their side, Dragon Boat operates their side. So much like a landlord-tenant agreement, we'll have responsibilities as the landlord for snow clearing, fire safety, those types of general maintenance things. And then each tenant will have responsibility for their usage, their cleanup, their garbage removal, all kind of things in between.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all for me, Madam Chair.
thank you. Then having no further questions, we'll call for the votes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Alex, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I heard your vote.
Yes, I did say aye.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Moving on in our agenda, we're at 9.1.3, which is request for reconsideration at the Lakeshore Curling Club. Now, we've heard the presentation from Lockie Rock earlier. There is a motion here. Prior to the motion, well, actually, so the motion that is written in your agenda is that the Grants Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council decline or approve the funding request from the Lakeshore Curling Club. Prior to putting whichever motion on the floor, we'll ask the legislative assistant how that should proceed.
Yeah, so that was not actually included in the agenda. It was kind of, this item was, I included that in your annotated agenda.
Okay.
But I, from what my understanding was with staff, is that this was going to be brought toward or before the committee, and the committee can kind of take it from there and decide what they would like to. That was just a suggested motion, if that, depending on what the committee
Okay.
decides on, or what they would, how they'd like to proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is ask PJ there to respond to some of the presentation, to Lockie Rutt's presentation about why it was denied. And if we could answer some of those questions, PJ, around the application.
Sure.
Would you be comfortable doing that for us? And then
Yes,
go through the
no
speakers?
problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
So first of all, let's start with the policy. So the policy is that a capital grant is for items costing over $5,000. Largely, capital grants have been directed to organizations who own and operate property, very high demand in that respect. A lot in relation to capital upgrades, a roof replacement, and so on. Typically, those are larger projects, so even $25,000 may represent a small percentage of the total cost. I call it the golden sock rule. If a pair of socks costs $10 and I buy 1,000 pairs, does that make it a capital grant? And the answer is no. So typically, the types of things might be a contribution towards the cost of the vehicle, for, let's say, a refrigerated vehicle for a food bank, like Feed Nova Scotia. So we've got lots of examples of that. Again, you saw in this year's grants report, the 96,000 cost total is a function of the number of items purchased. And the application of that policy was consistent. I think it was Mayor's Grant had asked for $25,000 towards tables and chairs. So first and foremost, that's the application of the policy. Otherwise, typically you'll get inundated with requests from groups who are seeking the maximum amount of funding, $25,000. And not all of those groups own and operate property. I would suggest that Lakeshore Curling Club is the only one that is a tenant in a municipal facility. The other curling clubs own their own properties. So in this year's report, you would have seen the Halifax Curling Club receiving a capital grant towards, I think it was a chiller replacement, obviously a critical piece of infrastructure to operate an ice surface. With respect to the earlier question, who wrote the application, with all due respect, Mr. Laughlin, I think there's an internal disconnect, perhaps amongst the committee itself or the board. The application was written by the chair. The notification of council's decision was sent to the chair. This is the party that was identified in the application. And in terms of an opportunity to add additional information, the standard application form allows for additional information up to a maximum of 3 pages. So there was every opportunity to get into the minutiae there. There is also some question around the capacity to go forward and purchase in bulk, roughly $92,000 of equipment. And as part of our background, it's not included in the report, but it is actually a license agreement, not a lease agreement in Sackville Sports Stadium. And the difference between a license and a lease is typically a lease would give the tenant perhaps a legal interest in the land. Typically, a lease is exclusive care and control over a building, a piece of land, or a defined portion. This is a license agreement because the curling club operates there only several months of the year. They have exclusive use during that period, but then after that, the ice is removed and that portion of Sackville Sports Stadium is used for other groups and municipal programs. That license agreement was put into effect in the fall of 2022. And under that, they pay a license fee, but there's also something called a contribution in lieu. And there is a defined number of hours set aside, 40 hours a month for HRM's use. And that contribution in lieu is deducted from the license fee that would otherwise be paid by this group. The license fee does make note of the equipment that was HRM property, meaning curling stones and rocks and so on, going to the Lakeshore Curling Club. But there was also, although it's not in the license agreement, we have confirmation from staff, there was also a concession made that reduced that contribution by $6,000, specifically towards the replacement of curling rock. So HRM staff clearly had acknowledged the rocks might have been old and in disrepair and needed to be replaced, but there's a $6,000 in-kind contribution already, albeit not a cash advance to the group. In terms of what options does the committee have? Well, you could simply accept the presentation has been made and continue forward with no change, no recommendation to change. The implications of suggesting a change, however, would mean, one, the administrative order would have to be amended because this is policy as to what constitutes a capital grant. That could set precedents. It could trigger grievances from other groups who applied were denied under that same policy. Secondly, a decision has already been rendered by regional council. So any change to that would be a motion of rescission, and that requires 2/3 majority of council. I would make reference to the Porters Lake. So Becky Kent, this is where we loop you in. And there, that gives you a sense of what would a staff report look like if you suggested that be done. It would add weeks or months to this process. And I think you can anticipate what the staff report would show. It would recommend against amending policy on a case-by-case basis. Partly, that's logistics. It's also about being consistent in the application of policy and the reputational risks to the municipality. Are you unfair in your considerations? Is there favoritism to this particular group? Bearing in mind that many of the groups that apply to this program do not have the same resources. They might not even have internet or a computer and the ability to make a presentation in this form. So, but you do have the options, and certainly we would follow the direction of council. Now, typically, a referral, again, we go back to Porters Lake, that referral came from council and that report went back to council. So that saves a lot of time because typically grants are time sensitive. My fear is that if we make an exception for one club, not only in terms of the policy, but the policy also says preference may be given to groups who are not in receipt of recurring government assistance, including municipal, we may set precedents. So just for your consideration, we'll follow the
Thank you.
direction.
Thank you very much, PJ. That was wonderful. I'll go now to the speakers list, and so we'll hear from everyone. Pamela, you're first on the list.
I understand that the process does sound onerous. It does sound like it puts other organizations in a bit of a state of being behind if this is changed. I guess my question as a new person, if it is denied and they go forward next year and ask again, what are the options for them in terms of paying for the stones if it's not capital? And I get this, the difference with a building, for example, or a larger piece of equipment. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, they certainly have the option of asking for a project grant. So that is up to $5,000. There's no guarantee. Given in any given year, we don't know how many and how urgent the need is. There are other options that we could send, for example, by separate email or a response, written response to the club. Through Sport Nova Scotia, and I think Curling Nova Scotia would be aware of it, there is a Sport Development Foundation. It's a registered charity. And a curling club is not going to qualify as a charity because it serves primarily the benefits to the members. But I know Bannock Canoe Club has used that process towards raising funds towards the purchase of equipment. It is meant for equipment, not operating. They might consider requests to district councillors. Councillors have district discretionary capital funds. Whether it fits as a capital, we'll leave for them to decide, or a district activity fund that's very small. There is no confirmation of the $30,000 from a federal application. But I did see on their website, they have announced that through their AGM, they'll be buying rocks. So I'm not quite sure how that balance of funds, roughly 50%, would be raised. They might also approach the operator, HRM operator of the Sackville Sports Stadium. If HRM is benefiting from public classes on that ice using equipment, is there any consideration there? I don't know, but I think it's worth asking the question for sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
My only other comment was to say that I think it was Alex that said having a second quote on the stones might not be a bad idea because it's a fairly significant amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Next on our list is Joseph Allen.
Thank you. This is a challenging one because it does support a very large section of that community within Sackville. So, geez. So my challenge is that whereas PJ was coming from is that it kind of opens Pandora's box, if you, as it were, is that by opening, you know, if you turn on a faucet and it drips, you're kind of opening the floodgates at that point if you keep turning the faucet. So that's my only challenge at this point, is that it kind of doesn't meet the requirements of what this program is meant for. And unfortunately, that is a challenge, of course, to the curling club. But yeah, I don't really generally have any questions, but I'm just kind of trying to mold this in my head of what other opportunities that could be available to them at this time, because geez, you don't want to see the curling club, you know, go through any challenges, but just not exactly sure what else are there other avenues we can provide them at this time.
Thank you. Next on our list is Councillor Kent. Becky. She's good. Next is Alex Sandyside.
Oh, yes. Madam Chair, am I allowed to ask Lockie a question, or is this just for PJ?
No, we're now beyond the public part of the.
Okay, then I'll make a statement instead. That what I would like to have known is when they started to fundraise for the 26,000 that they have already raised. Because that seems to me it's not very much for a club to have raised in quite a long period of time, because this has been anticipated for, you know, over 10 years. What is it, 18 years? If they started fundraising 18 years ago, knowing that they were going to have to replace these stones, then my point is 26 grand is not very much.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. That is the end of the list. As chair, maybe I would just make a comment that one of the options that PJ spoke to was district capital funds. And so in response to the curling club, I might say connect with the local councillor, the councillors from which the curling club draws. So they talked about Fall River. So that's me. Fall River and Beaverbank would be Councillor Blackburn, Councillor Russell. So it's, as I listen and understand this, it's not that anybody devalues or doesn't value the curling club and what it does and its value to our community. It's just that this particular program is not the right fit. And you trying to make something fit that by policy does not. There is a uniqueness in that rocks come from one sheet, but still I had to work with the group in Myers Grant because tables and chairs didn't qualify. So we found another option. And I think that's probably where we have to go for the Lakeshore Curling Club as well. So hearing everything in the conversation, I think that we have accepted and listened to the request for reconsideration. And we, I do not believe from a legislative point of view that we need a motion at this point. We will probably, PJ, would I say that? Will I say that staff will respond to this presentation? I mean, how do we close this loop
Right.
for the Curling Club?
So through Madam Chair to yourself, the committee could motion that they have received the presentation by the Lakeshore Curling Club and request that staff send written confirmation. So for example, we could provide clarity with respect to next year's program. We could
Right.
offer some constructive alternatives like the Capital District, like
Right.
the Sport Foundation with its charitable number. So we can close that loop and you could direct that correspondence be copied to the committee. Again,
Excellent.
for the same purpose. So you could see the Porter's Lake, close the loop for the committee members. A copy of that memo or letter would also close the loop. And it enables you to see staff has followed your request and what we said.
Fabulous.
So that
Now,
would be a motion.
crafting that lovely motion, Elizabeth, I'm sure that your pen has been working diligently there.
I am trying to put something together right now, and I can enter it into the chat as well once it's once I have a rough draft.
So Elizabeth, you could say that the Grants Committee received the presentation by Lakeshore Curling Club and
Mhm.
requests that staff provide a written response to the club with alternatives for funding or further clarification, and to copy that correspondence to members of the committee.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So would there be someone willing to make that motion of the committee or the committee?
I can make that motion.
Thank you, Joseph. And a
Okay.
seconder?
Copy and paste me, Elizabeth.
Yep, I'm putting that into the chat right now.
Appreciate that.
Just give me one moment.
No worries.
Once we see that, then we'll get a seconder. It's a very busy board behind you, PJ.
All right, you're on mute, PJ.
Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute, PJ. You're on mute.
I would say I should get one of those exotic back screens like Councillor Kent's, only mine's the 9th hole.
EJ, how did you word that again with a written response with alternatives?
With
to-
alternatives and clarification, and that the correspondence be copied to members of the Grants Committee.
Perfect.
So for the committee, the alternatives might be, you could consider this, this, and this. District capital has been one. The
Yes.
clarification would be in relation to if they wish to reapply next year.
So here we have the motion in the chat, and I will read it for the benefit of anyone who's watching online. It's that the Grants Committee acknowledge the presentation received from the Lakeshore Curling Club and request that staff provide a written response with alternatives and clarification, and that the correspondence be copied to members of the Grants Committee. So the motion was done by Joseph Allen, and now we will request a seconder. Pamela seconds. A question on the motion, Councillor Kent?
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to include, I mean, I know probably PJ, it's tradition for us to say you can always apply next year. But if the policy doesn't change, we're just sending them on a wild goose chase again. And frankly, I mean, obviously, unless the grants committee has a whole new approach on it and a look at it, I'm just wondering what the rationale would be on that one.
They could apply for a project grant.
Project grant, okay,
5,000.
yeah, okay, yes, that one I can support. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. That was in some ways a difficult conversation, but it seems that we came to a good result. The date of our next meeting is October 16th, 2023. And now I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Kent, adjourning at 11:11. Isn't that interesting? Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely day and a great week. Thank you to our staff who are present and to anyone who is watching. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.